Disclaimer: this video contains flashing images and some loud sounds. If you think you might get a seizure from either playing this game, like I almost did, or by watching this video, then please, refrain from viewing the following. Thank you and goodbye. This is the best David Attenborough impression I can make, okay? Hey, I'm the Ushatka, and throughout my time on this earth, I found very few things as entertaining and serotonin-inducing as watching a big number get bigger. Seemingly the entirety of humanity has agreed on this one fundamental concept, whether that be each global empire in history competing over the amount of square centimeters they own, down to Cookie Clicker having the 9th largest number of current players on Steam in the world. For some reason, our collective dumb lizard brains love the idea of causing a number to get increasingly large until it grows to a disgustingly robust degree. A great example of this phenomenon is a very sudden surge in popularity of one particular indie game released in December of 2021, a game by the name of Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors was developed and published by Luca Galante, alongside a small team of artists, programmers, and musical composers with the ultimate goal of making a fun, cheap, and addictive game that brings millennials back to the good old days of playing Castlevania on the SNES after a long day of school while talking to your friends on the Motorola 8000X, eating a pack of Dunkaroos, and trying to forget that you live in a Soviet state enclosed by the Iron Curtain with no access to the West. Recently I have grown very fond of Vampire Survivors, often playing it while on voice calls with my friends, or when I'm just bored and have nothing to do. For me, it perfectly scratches that itch of needing an immediate surge of serotonin, whilst not needing to invest your brain power in anything too deeply. It's just another case of the infinitely common, I need to shut off my brain and enjoy myself, let me boot up this fun, brainless game. Also, the game makes me feel like a god. But we'll get back to that. The game is ridiculously cheap, costing a grand total of 5 crisp dollary-doos. Sorry, I meant $4.99. Wouldn't want to make it too expensive now, would we? The file size for this is also about as microscopic as you could get it, being able to run smooth as butter on pretty much any PC. The gameplay itself is also jokingly simple. You begin by picking one of the various unlockable characters in the game to play as, then picking a stage to play in, and immediately get dropped into combat. Each character has a small number of buffs that they have, as well as a starter weapon that they use. The spooky Halloween-themed enemies you fight in each stage drop XP, which adds to your XP bar that, when filled, allows you to level up. Upon leveling up, you get a choice of either upgrading an item you already have, or gaining a new item. These items are weapons, which deal damage, and passive trinkets that boost your stats, like movement speed or damage output, both of which having a limiting cap of 6 each. On a completely bare-bones level, that's what the game is. There's very little actual input from the player, really only using WASD or the arrow keys to move, and that's it. So then where does the hyper-serotonin brain rot come in, I hear you ask? Well, did I mention that Luca Galante, the developer of Vampire Survivors, used to work in the gambling industry, making slot machines, because, oh boy, does it show! The game has a whole load of fantastic game mechanics that make the entire game extremely rewarding. Now, the very obvious one is loot boxes that are dropped by bigger and tougher enemies. Yes, we all love loot boxes. Get the fuck away from me, Blizzard and EA. No one likes you. But jokes aside, the loot boxes in Vampire Survivors are 1. Not purchasable in any way, 2. Don't give you any limited edition bullcrap items, and 3. Have actual game design purposes outside of giving the player a gambling addiction. Allow me to elaborate. The loot box mechanic directly adds and works alongside the evolution mechanic. Essentially, when you have a specific weapon upgraded to its highest level, while also having a corresponding passive item equipped, the weapon will be able to evolve into a vastly superior version of itself. However, it can only evolve by finding loot boxes. Therefore, the loot boxes manage to fit themselves into game progression and mechanics pretty much seamlessly. Watch AAA game publishing companies, this is how you make loot boxes work. The evolution mechanic in the game is also very satisfactory in of itself. On one hand, because it forces the player to think on which items they are going to equip, giving a nice sensation of strategization and deep thought of action. But also because of the power fantasy. Let's take for instance one of the most mid weapons of the game, the knife. Regularly, the knife is thrown in whichever direction you are walking in, becoming a small projectile that deals minimal damage and fires at a fairly slow rate. The more the knife gets upgraded, the more projectiles get thrown out at once, and at a faster velocity and rate. However, if you have the bracer equipped, a passive trinket that increases speed of your attacks, then the knife gets the ability to evolve into the 1000 Edge. Wait. Edge? Edge? Which basically blasts a horizontal downpour of knives, reducing whatever you look at into subatomic Swiss cheese. And keep in mind this is one of the more mid weapons. Compare that to, for example, the Fire Wand, which usually fires auto-aiming bolts of fire, but when evolved using spinach, which augments the damage of all your weapons, suddenly you have yourself the Hellfire, which fires fucking meteors and gives your enemies the dinosaur treatment. Or perhaps you could use one of my personal favorite weapons, Garlic, which creates an area of passive damage around you, but when combined with the Pumarola, which passively heals your health, you create the Soul Eater, which creates a massive field of health-sapping damage around you. And this is not mentioning the super evolves. Basically, some weapons pair with each other, and when they are both max level, they fusion dance together into one horrific entity. For instance, by leveling up the Pioconi and its edgelord brother, the two will Steven Universe-style fuse into the Vandalier, also known as the Interstellar Nuclear-Powered Gay Combat Assault Falcon. Or by combining 8 the Sparrow with the Fiera del Tufelo, which are both straight up pairs of guns, while having the Tiramisu equipped, and you can make yourself the Fieragi, which can only be described as an 8-point rotating barrage of lasers. Are you beginning to see why this game is as strangely popular as it is? Due to this game, my brain has been irreversibly and permanently corroded and encrusted with stupid, instant gratification, monkey brain and neuron activation brain rot. I will never psychologically recover from this. Playing Vampire Survivors feels like getting psychically blasted into a serotonin-fueled power trip, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The fact that I can pay actual pocket money to feel like my soul is ascending into gamer nirvana proves to me that big game publishing companies are a bunch of scammers just trying to get a good hold over my wallet. And I would also like to make sure that everyone is aware that I am still not expanding on every single aspect of this game, because from the permanent upgrades all the way down to the positively massive Arcana mechanic, Vampire Survivors has simply far too many things to offer. It almost feels like you, as the consumer, are stealing from the developer more than vice versa, which more often than not is the case. Vampire Survivors also knows what kind of game it is. It doesn't offer pretty much any story or dialogue or anything like that. Vampire Survivors hands you a 30-minute session of exhilarating shoot-em-up action and leaves it off at that. That's it. Take it and go. Or do it again. Nothing more to that. Go live your life. Yeah. Okay, I'm going off script now. The stages themselves are also very well crafted. All of them are procedurally generated and designed in favor of being consistently challenging and fun, whilst also giving room for that power fantasy that comes with leveling up. It begins off with very basic premises that help to understand the game, the first few stages being fairly simple in concept, while later becoming more elaborate with time. Going in semi-chronological order, we have the Mad Forest, which is as simple as the game is ever going to get. Prime objective, survive. Essentially just a large procedurally generated area with forest-like enemies and loot to be found. Later on there's the Inlaid Library and the Gallow Tower, both being unique in the fact that they are procedurally generated, but only going horizontally or vertically. Then there's the Milk Factory, which is filled to the brim with dangerous milk-related factory equipment, as well as being home to the one and only Cum Monster. God, I hate this script. Oh my god. The Capella Magna breaks the mold a bit by being far less procedurally generated than the other stages. Il Molise is completely different as it has non-moving, completely stationary plant enemies, but only goes on for 15 minutes rather than the standard 30 minutes. The Moonglow introduces a very fun mechanic that adds the Glass Wizard, aka single frame skinny Santa, into all the stages, who is basically an item merchant that sells you more weapons and trinkets. And my personal favorite stage, the Bone Zone, which is a non-Euclidean liminal hellscape filled with skeletons. There are tons more stages, and each one comes with its own little gimmick and game style that come along with it. Most stages will have some active stat increase, or some bonus that is attributed to the player while the stage goes on. Alongside this, stages will have a number of trinkets that just kinda lie on the floor. This is amazing game design as it incentivizes players to strategize on the character and section they will be playing in to correspond with their preferred build. The music in this game definitely fulfills its purpose and has a very fun, retro sound to it, using a lot of very punchy 16-bit-esque digital instruments. I imagine that throughout the course of this very video, the Vampire Survivors soundtrack has been playing on and off because it's a solid collection of songs that tie in really well with the gameplay and overall aesthetic that Vampire Survivors is pulling off. How does he know this? I didn't tell him this. How does he know? How does he know this? I'm telling you, he's in the walls. This is getting too meta for me. Now, since the release of Vampire Survivors in 2021, the developers of the game have released various DLCs. Amongst these, one can find honorable and socially acceptable extensions of this wonderful video game, such as Legacy of the Moonspell or Tides of Foscari. But the one that I, John Ushatka, have bought is anything but honorable or socially acceptable, because the Vampire Survivals DLC that I have purchased with my own money was none other than, drumroll please, the Emergency Meeting DLC, aka the Among Us DLC. That's right, mother truckers, I, the Ushatka, from YouTube, publicly announced that I spent my very own 2 United States dollars and 49 United States cents on an Among Us and Vampire Survivors collab DLC. This is art, and better yet, this is legally licensed. Ergo, this is canon! And I don't care what any single-shoed, acne-inducing, 40-year-old, balding 4chan user tells me. This is by far one of the most glorious things I've ever seen. For literal pocket money, both you and I, two regular schmucks on this crackpot of an earth, can gain this divine gift to humanity. The entire thing comes with a total of 9 new characters, including the crewmate, the engineer, the shapeshifter, the imposter, this guy, and a bunch more. It also comes with 16 new weapons and 8 new passive trinkets, and yes, there are evolutions of said weapons. It also comes with a new large stage and 6 brand new musical scores, proving again that you don't need to spend $50 on a DLC that gives you 2 skins and a fucking emote or something stupid like that. In conclusion, Vampire Survivors is an S-tier game that is persistently fun and costs a puny amount of money. There is a reason why it's so popular and why it got the award for Best Game Design and Best Game in British Academy Game Awards in 2021. Like and subscribe, comment if you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and this has been the Ushatka.
Also follow me on Twitch, bye!